Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between violet hills and sleepy meadows, the moon disappeared. No one knew how or why. It simply stopped rising one night. The sky was dark and blank, and the stars looked lonely without their silvery companion. The villagers whispered worriedly in candlelight, their eyes scanning the sky for a sign of its return. Some said it was stolen. Others believed it had grown tired of watching over them. But the truth was, no one really knew. The nights grew colder, the fields lost their shimmer. Children who once danced under moonbeams now stayed indoors. Dreams felt heavier, quieter, and the world lost a little bit of its magic. All the while, in a forgotten corner of the village near the painter's old shop, lived a small black cat named Miro. No one really noticed him, not the bakers with their trays of bread, nor the children skipping stones by the stream. Miro wandered through the alleys, watching the world with golden eyes that seemed to hold the glow of 1,000 stars. Long before the moon vanished, Miro had belonged to an old painter named Elio. Elio had painted everything: wildflower fields, starlit skies, and stories no one had words for. His hands were always speckled with colour, and his cottage smelled of paint and peppermint tea. But Elio had grown old, and one autumn he lay down with a sigh and never rose again. Since then, Miro had been alone. The house was silent, its windows dusty, its brushes stiff with time. But on the night the moon disappeared, something stirred inside the cat. Something soft and sad and warm all at once. He crept into Elio's studio, where moonlight used to pour in like milk. Now only shadows lived there. The easel stood empty, the canvas blank. Miro padded across the room and paused before a cabinet. He nudged it open with his nose and found it just as Elio had left it: jars of paint, brushes of every size, and tubes of shimmering white and silver. With careful pause, Miro pulled out a brush and dipped it into the silver paint. Then he looked out the window at the sky, vast and empty. And slowly he began to paint. He painted the moon where it used to be, round and bright and full of stories. His strokes were gentle, like whispers, like lullabies. When he finished, he sat back on his haunches and looked up. Nothing happened. The sky remained dark. The stars blinked softly, but the moon did not appear. Miro curled up beneath the window, the brush still beside him, and closed his eyes. But the next night, a faint shimmer glowed where the moon should have been. Just a sliver, like a dream half remembered. Miro saw it and understood. He returned to the studio, dipped his brush again, and painted stroke by stroke, night after night. A little more moon each time, a crescent, then a half, then a glowing pearl in the sky. The villagers began to notice. At first they thought they were imagining it. "Is it coming back?" they whispered, "or is it just a trick of the stars?" But children began to play under the soft glow once more, and the river started catching light in its ripples again. Dreams became sweeter, and sleep came easier. No one knew who was bringing the moon back. They didn't know about the black cat who dipped his paw in silver and left trails of moonlight behind. They didn't see the paintbrush balanced delicately between his teeth, or the little smudges of silver he left on the windowsill. But Miro didn't mind. He wasn't painting for praise, he was painting for Elio. Each stroke felt like a memory, a story his old friend used to tell, a laugh shared under starlight, a promise whispered between heartbeats. Miro painted to remember, and in doing so, he helped the world remember its own light. One evening, as he finished the final stroke of a full, glowing moon, a soft breeze drifted through the studio window. Miro sat quietly, his golden eyes reflecting the light now hanging proudly in the sky. And then he heard it, a voice, gentle, familiar, like wind brushing through trees or laughter wrapped in love. "Thank you, Miro." The little cat looked up sharply. In the doorway stood a figure, not quite solid, not quite shadow. Elio smiled, his hands still smudged with paint, his eyes full of stars. "You brought it back," he said, stepping into the room. Not just the moon, but the magic. Miro meowed softly as if to say, I missed you. Elio knelt beside him and scratched gently behind his ears. You always understood what others didn't, he whispered, that even the quietest artist can change the sky. For a moment, the room shimmered, like moonlight on water, and then Elio faded, leaving behind the warmth of love and the scent of peppermint and paint. From that night on, the moon never disappeared again. And though no one knew the truth, sometimes if you walked past the old painter's studio at dusk, you'd see tiny silver paw prints leading up to the window. Children would stare in wonder and ask, "Who's painting the moon?" And their parents would smile and say, "Maybe it's the stars, or maybe it's a dream." But Miro knew. He still lived in the little studio, now a place where stray cats and lost birds found shelter. Every so often, when the moon looked a little faded or tired, Miro would dip his brush once more and give it a fresh coat of wonder. Because some artists don't need applause, they paint for the love of it, for healing, for memory, for those they miss. And sometimes they paint the moon,